arse end of nowhere with 505 games in Rebellion, check out Sniper Elite V2 and taking our first class in sniper school.
My name's Jason Kingsley, I'm the CEO and Creative Director of Rebellion.
And my name's Steve Hart, I'm the Senior Producer at Rebellion.
6 years ago we came out with a really good game and we enjoyed making it, and we just finally managed to get it out, find the time, find the resources, find the right kind of supporters with 505 and Mastertronic to get it to the place it is, and a great team as well. That's the thing, when you look at a sequel you think, right, what was good about this, what didn't quite work, what can we do better, what can we do differently? And we did toy with the modern day setting, we toyed with various different settings in history, but we felt we still had a lot of things to do in Berlin. There are a lot of stories to tell, fascinating period in history, and we had more to do in Berlin, so that's why we're still in Berlin at the end of the Second World War.
And with that sort of 2-week period at the very end of World War II. So you've got springtime, you've got the Russians in there, Germans, fighting for their lives in that final 2 weeks. You drop in a lone wolf Allied sniper and see what happens. One man against two armies. It's awesome.
I think the kill cam really it evolved from the original kill cam. We wanted to do more with it. We realised we could with the technology. The team's done a brilliant job sort of modelling internal organs and bodies, body parts and all these kind of things in immense detail. It's actually almost quite educational. You know where people's spleen is after you played this game. But the intention isn't to be gory. The intention is really to show what a bullet can do to the human body, and it's pretty scary. The whole game is about monitoring and checking what the enemy are doing before you go loud, and therefore the result of that careful hunting kind of hawk-like attitude is the bullet cam. You don't get it all the time. We control it so that it comes as sometimes comes as a surprise to a certain extent, but it's always there and it's always different because it's generated on the fly. There are tens of thousands of different ones. I'm still playing the game and seeing new kill cams, which is a cool reward in and of itself. I think we've got to make sure that the player knows that it's not a run and gun game. It's not a game where you run down the middle of the street and targets pop up and you get to shoot them. It's a lot more intense than that. Preparation is the key thing. But that's what our job is, to try and make sure people, when they first play the game, they get that's the message, and that's what the tutorial allows and hopefully creates.
So bullet penetration was one of the first things we had to tackle within the development team in pre-production. So we took things like the weapon's muzzle velocity, the bullet drop itself. Windage was another area that we had to look at, and look to develop a dynamic system that we could generate on the consoles that would allow for something that's not entirely accurate. We exaggerate in areas because it's urban warfare. This isn't us from the top of a hill engaging troops from another hill. It's not one click distance. It's sort of 300, 500 meter ranges, and some closer than that. So we wanted to make sure that the bullet drop and wind calculations had to play a part in it at these shorter distances, which is why it was exaggerated a little. But yeah, there's plenty that's gone into that system. And we believe it does the job very successfully.
Obviously, we're creating an entertaining sniper sim, so you have to make compromises. If we were making a Formula 1 driving game, we would not assume everybody could drive a Formula 1 car. We'd have to compromise, and to a certain extent we've had to do that. But on the harder difficulty levels, obviously on cadet level, the beginning places, there are lots of ways that the players helped. There's lots of simplifications, but as you go into the harder levels, the elite modes, all of that's stripped away and you're left with the rifle and your own brain. Well, when the first game came out, we were very clearly trying to be a different kind of war game. We wanted to make it a sort of more of a personal solo experience rather than being part of the front line or part of a war scene, as it were, in a battlefield. And we've tried to maintain that as well. We're very aware there's some very, very good games out there that are more run and gun. They're pop-up targets and they're incredibly entertaining and they're great. This one is entertaining in a different way, in that you've got the atmosphere of stalking. You've got the brutality of a war. I mean, you've got a sniper rifle, you've got other weapons too, but basically if they find you and they've got machine guns, you're pretty much dead.
All right, so basically the two rifles that we're firing today is the Mauser 98, which was the Wehrmacht issue rifle from 1935 to 1945. So it's original manufacture 1943 with the original Zeisshaus Jenner scope on the top. It's basically an 8mm Mauser round, which is 7.92 millimeters. They're still in service today, actually, in places like Syria and Middle East. They've been found in Iraq and Afghanistan. You probably will have seen it on films such as Enemy at the Gates, and obviously it's in the new Sniper Elite game as well.
Martin Pegler. I'm now a firearms consultant, but I worked at the Royal Armouries for 20 years, and so guns have been pretty much my livelihood.
So what involvement have you had in the game?
Started off with the first game about 6 years ago now, when I was contacted to ask if I could put the technical input in for really what the weapons were capable of doing, what was feasible and what wasn't feasible, to make it as realistic as possible. So that was where I came into Rebellion, and here we are 6 years later doing the follow-up to it.
For us today, we've never fired a sniper rifle before. Not many people have. I mean, what kind of advice would you give us when we were down there on the range?
For shooting, make sure that you always keep the rifle stock firmly in your shoulder, don't hold it loosely, don't tense up. The more tense you are, the more your muscles shake and the wobblier things will be. Breathe very steadily and just relax, and you'll find it's actually quite fun. People are always a bit nervous to start off with, but it's very easy to get hooked on shooting those rifles. I speak from experience.
We're also firing the model 1903 Springfield with the original Unertal scope on it, which is also in the game, and you will have seen it on Saving Private Ryan and films like that. That's a 30-06 caliber round, which is still used today as a hunting rifle. But both the weapons are period and saw active service during the Second World War, so it's good fun to be able to let you guys shoot them today. What's the kind of difference between the two?
Of the two, I would say generally the Mauser with its optics had the edge. The Germans produced very, very good optics. The Americans tended to adopt commercial optics because they were available, but they weren't produced with the military in mind, so they were always a bit of a compromise. In terms of performance for the rifles, there's really nothing between them.
What sort of range do they have?
A good sniper was perfectly capable of shooting out to 700-800 metres. Particularly with the US rifle, the Americans tended to use two types of scope, quite a low-powered one and a much higher-powered 8-power one. With the bigger scope on, in excess of 1,000 metres was quite feasible. For the German rifle, slightly less than that. Generally it was reckoned 600, 700 metres was about it for an accurate shot.
And what kind of things do you have to take into account when you're shooting one?
You have to take into account predominantly your range. That's the most crucial factor, and so you have to allow for bullet drop, which is, they factored that into the game, which I think is very clever and very necessary. Wind, which affects the flight of the bullet laterally, left or right, is an important factor. You also have to take into account the height you're shooting from. The higher you are, the less density there is in the air. If it's hot, your bullet flight will be different to if it's cold and wet. There are all sorts of things that most people would never think of A gusting wind, for example, is extremely difficult to shoot in. A constant side wind you can calculate for, but if you're shooting at a target at several hundred metres and the wind is blowing gustily, how do you calculate that? Well, what you have to do is try and find time to shoot when the wind's dropped, and that takes some skill. It's a very, very complex thing to learn.
You cuddled it lovingly.
That's going to be the cheesiest grin of all day. Yeah, I can do with the tripod, it's like, So 5 headshots, so I think that's a double shot through one hole there, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then the 6th one's in there as well.
Not bad, eh?
So yeah, not bad at all. So it's, that's 5 headshots. Remember, we're not shooting for centre of mass here, we're going for sniper headshots, and you've hit all 5, so well done.
Thank you very much.
Whose is this one?
That's mine.
So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
There you go.
And a 5
and a 6.
So you've got 5.
Sniper Elite V2 out at a place great near you, May the 4th. That didn't make any sense at all, did it?
It works.